Hey, Vino.
What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball and New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Rattler. What is popping with your bro?
What up, bro? So, man, enjoying this not so much football. It's a sad time in the city, man. It's a sad time when you can't wake up on Sundays and the Saints are playing, and you just feel the vibe all off in the city, man. And it's just you dread those days as opposed to look forward to them. So, outside of that, there's some good basketball on. College football playoffs about to be all the way. Jaden Daniels got announced as a Heisman finalist. So shout out to him. Let's hope he boot. And yeah, man, everything is all good, man. It's exciting times in the NBA. Exciting times for New Orleans basketball. We're gonna get into it. The Pels getting that dub tonight, man. It was quite the game. So how's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed to have our health going into the winter season. Yes, football season's been over for me for a while. But hey,
stuff out here.
Shout out, my baby girl turned 2 this weekend, so I got nothing but blessings there. So
yes,
before we get into the game that was the inaugural in-season tournament, Pelicans play, make sure you guys follow us on X, on Twitter, on IG, on TikTok. That's NO Basketball, no E. Make sure you like the episode below and make sure you subscribe to New Orleans Basketball because something tells me this season is going to be different than some of the past ones. So the Pelicans faced the Kings for the third time this season. And for the third time this season, they beat the Kings handedly. This time, there was somebody in my comments from, we do takeaways after each game and, try to trip people for the next game. There was someone in my comments after the last Sacramento game, and they were like, when Sacramento gets back to the beam and they get back to the home court, it's going to be different. Well, you knew that the Kings were going to come out and give a punch, right? Like, obviously, you get beat twice pretty handily, well, terribly the first time, and then pretty handily the second time, even though it was close at the end. You know that they're going to come out with some type of vengeance, and it's the in-season tournament game, and the Kings ain't really played for anything in a long time. They're a young team trying to get their name out there as well, and De'Aaron Fox is trying to make first-team All-NBA. Like, all these things going, you knew they were about to come out in there with it on their mind. And what you had to ask yourself was, are the Pelicans going to fight back? Or are they going to get too big of a hole and try to climb out? So the answer was obvious. They end up winning this one 127-117. But it was how the game took shape, right? Sac comes out. They get out to a big lead. But in that first quarter, it's not like it leaked over to the second quarter or third quarter, fourth quarter. In that first quarter, here come Jose Alvarado, here come Najee Marshall, and they punch right back. I tweeted it out. You knew the punch was coming. Can you handle the punch, and can you counter? And the Pelicans did. So tell me what you saw from this game tonight in the first quarter and the developments from there on after.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, this is a game. This was a game that meant a lot. People will say whatever they want to say about how important these games are and what are you really playing for? But, for a team that has not won anything, but has so much talent, right? This was an opportunity for the Pelicans to not only go for something, right? Like see how you play with higher than regular season stakes. No matter what it is, this is not a regular season game. And the Sacramento Kings treated it like that. They treated it like it was a playoff game. And how were the Pelicans gonna do, right? This is Zion's first ever opportunity to play for anything outside of a regular season win. How is he gonna fare, right? We've seen the Pelicans get into big games and have all eyes on them, and there's a lot of times where they fold, right? Like they don't play well. And it started at the beginning, right? You saw Sacramento come out and make every shot. The sliders were up. Everybody's energy is up. The beam is being lit already in the first quarter. in the beginning of the first quarter. But listen, when you think about this team, you think about all of the guys that contributed in this win, you could go through and say, like, who's the MVP of the game, right? You could say, like, Brandon Ingram and his play and Herb Jones just kind of being steady in his play. But really, this game was saved by Najee Marshall and Jose Alvarado, because this game could have gotten away from the Pelicans early. And with Zion not playing his best, and we'll talk about what the Kings did to kind of help that effort. It's very easy for that, to snowball, right, and leak out from that first quarter on. But Najee and Jose coming in with defense. Jose came in and played like it's like he tied his shoes on the side, like Mike. Like, he came out and he did all of those Jose things, won all of the Jose statistics. On the day that Grand Theft Auto 6 drops the trailer, my guy gets his first Grand Theft Auto of the season. Poetic justice, right? And I tweeted about it in that first quarter. There is something very poetic and something very symbolic of a tournament that, 500K to any 99% of the world is an astounding amount of money. Those 1%ers in the NBA who make $53 million a year, 500K is a club night, right? Or something like that. But with 500K and pride being the only things on the line for real, it was undrafted players in the first quarter that came in and played their asses off, put their bodies on the line, picked up the energy while the others kind of got their bearings around them. So the first quarter was a really good indicator that the Pelicans were gonna be here to play. Closing that quarter out with that Herb Jones kind of tip in, which is uber athletic and uber smart of a play to make. I think it showed that the Pelicans were game to play, and they showed it throughout the rest of the game.
Right. This is exactly what Jose Alvarado and Najee Marshall are on the team for. They're your energy guys. Like we talked about it. There are going to be times, and you saw it tonight, and we'll get to it, where certain guys don't play and other guys don't play or do play. Well, when you start off down 15 on the road in a hostile environment with very little energy, what do you need? You need a jolt of energy, and that's exactly what Jose and Najee brought. Like, obviously, Jose had a great floor game in there with 9 points, and Najee brought some energy, had some crazy plays, some Najee-like plays, but brought some energy in that first half as well, and that's exactly what you need. Now, what we need to get to is by playing Jose Alvarado and by playing Najee Marshall and the return of Trey Murphy and the return of CJ McCollum, you saw 0 minutes from Jordan Hawkins, and you saw very sporadic minutes from Dyson Daniels. Let me get your thoughts on that. Like, obviously, when Jordan Hawkins never took off his warm-ups, I think Pelican fans around the nation were a little bit upset. But what are your thoughts? And like, obviously, they won the game. They won the game by 10. They pretty much carried the game after the second quarter. Where's your head at with where things should be?
So it's tough because, and I tweeted about it. I'll be the first to admit it. I tweeted about it, about Jordan Hawkins needing to be on the floor. And there is like not 80% of me that says that Jordan Hawkins needs to see the floor in every game, just because of the what he brings to the table, his dynamic ways to affect the game offensively. And I do think that he had an opportunity to come in and do some things with the way Sacramento was playing defense. However, I just think that this is just going to be something that you see on a nightly basis. Somebody is going to not play, and it's going to be, it's going to be questionable. And it's not so much as, like it's wrong. It's just at when you have so many talented guys, and the TNT guys, Stan Van Gundy was talking about it. When you go 13 deep, and we're talking about Jordan Hawkins, who's averaging 13 points a game on 38% from three. I mean, that is a guy that you would think needs to see the floor. But had he seen the floor, what did Najee have been able to make some of the plays that he made, and and would Jose be able to make? Because that's who we're talking about. Minutes would have been taken, and so it's just a slippery slope. And listen, I think that Jordan Hawkins should play a majority of the games. And again, I think he should have played tonight. but it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be nights when you have guys that you've seen contribute the game before, right? Like Dyson had a decent game in Chicago, kind of playing when everybody wasn't playing, and then you see him sporadically playing. I just think that is the pains of having a team that is deep, right? And another thing on that is that we've seen Willie Green go to what he feels most comfortable with, right? To his detriment sometimes. And he's comfortable with Najee. He's comfortable with Jose. Again, last time his team had any success was against the Suns in the playoffs. And at the last possible second that the Pelicans could have been playing, Jose Alvarado was on the floor. So this is a guy that Willie Green is comfortable with. He knows what he's going to get out of Jose, and he's going to play him. And same thing for Najee. That's his knife, right? That's his knife. And so he feels comfortable with those guys, and those guys saw the floor tonight, and they contributed to the Pelicans coming back, staying afloat in the first quarter and being able to play. So it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah. I'll say this, 2 points. I think that I have to give Willie Green credit because on one hand, he did exactly what we've been calling for, right in the hot hand. Like Jose came in and immediately making an impact, both on the defensive end, and he was hitting pull-up threes in transition, and he was hitting corner threes. So he made an impact on that end. And so you ride the hot hand and you let him play. On the other hand, to your point, at some point, once the hot hand kind of slowed down or they were playing to the mismatch, like at that point, maybe you take a look at some floor spacing because you could tell Zion was being frustrated. We'll talk about how he was being guarded because they literally loaded up every play because they would leave Najee open. They would leave people open. And, to some degree they made them pay and to some degree they didn't. And so the second point of that is I think it's going to be a night-by-night basis. And I think tonight called for an energy play. And I think once they got in and they were hitting enough shots, we always talk about like Dyson being in the start lineup or Jose and Najee being on the court. As long as they're hitting enough shots, you can live with that because they're hounds on the defensive end. But if they're not going to hit those shots and you're not being able to produce offensively, that's when you kind of have to use the rest of your bench that is more offensive focus in the Jordan Hawkins and the Matt Ryans and things like that. So it might be a night-by-night basis, but the biggest issue, and again, they won handily. The Pelicans led for the majority of the game, and so you can't really knock anything that Willie Green and those coaches had to say. But the thing that still worries me and keeps me up at night is I still think the Pelicans need a backup big. For first off, let's give props to Jonas Valanciunas and the team because the biggest issue with JV up until this point in his Pelicans tenure is that he's not been utilized correctly. And this season, you can tell they're making an effort to find JV once the double comes. Find JV when he's got position in the post. Now, they probably could do a little bit more, but they're doing it more than in historically, right? On the flip side of that, JV is being more aggressive. When he gets the ball, he's not fading away, looking to pass, holding it for 3 seconds, waiting for the double. He's making decisions and he's attacking whoever's guarding him defensively. So you have to give him his props. If the Pelicans are going to use him correctly, he's one of the best centers in the league. You're not going to upgrade from that. But the backup center position, listen, I know Larry Nance is out, but let's be honest, Larry Nance wasn't Larry Nance prior to him getting injured. Like, he hasn't looked like himself coming off numerous injuries in the past year, this summer, the past couple of years and things like that. Listen, you love the effort from Cody Zeller, but that's probably not who you want to be playing on a night-to-night basis as your backup center. So you're forced to play Zion at the 5, and there's pluses and minuses to that. Like a matchup with Sabonis, yeah, but there's going to be some centers where it just doesn't make sense to put Zion at the 5 because he's going to get killed because he doesn't play like a center. He plays like a guard. That's why he doesn't rebound like that. He doesn't have a center's-like mentality. And so if that's the case, I just think that is such a hole that can be addressed around the deadline because I just think that is going to eventually be somewhat of an Achilles heel for this team. Now, those are the deficits. Now we have to talk about that guy, Brandon Xavier Ingram. So I challenge you to remember the game last season. It was the last week of the season. people were punching walls, people were yelling at teammates in the Minnesota Timberwolves game. But the biggest thing I took from that game was Anthony Edwards got physical with Brandon Ingram, and it took him completely out of his game. And the Pelicans end up losing that game last season, and eventually their season came to an end in a play-in tournament. In this game in particular, you could tell the Kings' strategy was we're going to irritate BI. You could see Keegan Murray up in his jersey. You could see Herder up in his jersey. And for the first time consistently, maybe in like his entire career, I saw BI get physical back. In that second quarter, he was throwing whoever was guarding him, grabbing. He wasn't looking for the foul. He wasn't standing to complain to the ref that he didn't get the foul cut. He was bringing the physicality to him. And that is something that is a different switch for Brandon Ingram. And I think that mentality and I think that energy resonated throughout the team. And obviously he closed out the game. So what did you see from BI in this game and his, one of his few opportunities on a big stage to show what he could do in an elimination game?
That's a bad man.
Yeah.
That is a bad man. That the game that Brandon Ingram had in that we just saw is one of his best games I've ever seen him play. And Brandon Ingram has played a lot of great games, especially the Pelicans jersey. Listen, damn the 50% from the field, damn the 50% from the three-point line. The way he did not back down from anything, like the physicality, you talk about it. We've seen that be Brandon Ingram's Achilles heel. And it's a lot of things. It's because he's skinny, right? He's a laid back kind of guy. He doesn't really talk a lot. And so like, a lot of players, and he's really good. And so like, and he's unguardable when you talk about size and speed and strength. He doesn't have a lot of good matchups for him. And so what teams do, they try to frustrate him and get him out of his game. And more than like him being physical back, what I enjoyed seeing was him getting out of character a little bit and trying to force the issue to the point where he missed CJ on a pass, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing that I liked is that he centered himself from that, because I've seen Brandon Ingram try to play through physical contact and like get out of the game and get out of the rhythm and try to do the most and try to prove himself. But what he did, he centered himself, right? He came down and made some brilliant passes, finding guys, and then he got back into the physicality, got back into smart play, smart getting into the ball, getting into the rim. And he didn't. I mean, Keegan Murray couldn't. Eventually, all of those pulling and things, like Keegan Murray ended with like 4 or 5 fouls. He really could have had like 8 or 9.
Right, he was fouling every play. Yeah.
They let him play physical, and that's fine. If you're gonna let him play physical, let him play physical. But I think Brandon Ingram's ability to be physical and to show that aggression and play downhill, and listen, this guy is a walking bucket. He can score on anybody, and on anybody in the NBA. It takes a lot for him to get to these these levels where he has to turn downhill and get aggressive in things. You want to see that all the time, right? Like that is the Brandon Ingram you want to see every play and every game, because that Brandon Ingram is unstoppable. So again, you can talk about who is the MVP of this game, right? You can go down the list with a bunch of different guys, but Brandon Ingram's ability to keep this team afloat with Zion not playing well and, or being defended very, very hardly, and not playing well. And he kept the team afloat. There were runs that Sacramento made where BI just came down and was like, mid-range. I tweeted about it. Man, this dude was in a full quarter of a playoff intensity game and just was shooting. It was like he was shooting around. And so there's just so much that Brandon Ingram brought to this game today. It was a phenomenal floor game to him. I mean, he had 8 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, he was just all over the place doing some things. And when they got him amped, BI was kind of swarming on defense too. Like he was making contesting, running out, playing physical, going in for rebounds, tapping the ball out, doing the Steven Adams. I mean, there was just a lot of things that he was doing. And I think this is one of the best games, especially when you talk about non-regular season stakes on the line. I think this is one of Brandon Ingram's best games as a Pelican.
Well, if this is one of Brandon Ingram's best games as a Pelican, what the hell was this for Herb Jones? Because Listen, I feel like every time we get on this pod, we talk about the development of Herb Jones, both offensively and defensively. But like, it's also a mindset. Like I've seen Herb so far this season. What are they? 22 games in, something like that. Like to your point before, like he's not looking for nobody else on fast breaks. He's not looking for nobody else when he catches the ball on a cut. He's not looking for nobody else when he catches the ball on the 3-point line. And just the assertiveness and the confidence from Herb on the offensive, it opened so many up. There was a play that Herb took early in the shot clock, drove toward the basket, completely whiffed on the layup, but Zion gets the rebound and puts it back up. Just the fact that someone else on the court is causing a collapse of the defense, and Zion is the one that's left unguarded. That just opens up the team so much more, right? And obviously, he's a menace defensively. Like De'Aaron Fox, how many years have we talked about him being a New Orleans killer? Because every time he plays the Pelicans, he goes off. Well, in 3 games so far this season, Herb has made life difficult on De'Aaron Fox. There was a time during that game, maybe like the third quarter, the beginning of the fourth quarter, where De'Aaron Fox wasn't trying to get to the rim. He was settling for 3 because he was tired of dealing with Herb. And like that's the difference, right? Like we talk about all these teams in the West with the Nuggets and the Suns and all these teams at the top of the West. Like other than the Timberwolves and a little bit OKC, nobody else has wings to make it difficult on the opposing best player, right? And if you've got one of the best defensive players in the world on your team guarding and making it difficult on the other team while having 2 of the best offensive players also on that floor and then having 2 of the best shooters also on that floor, that is hard for a team to deal with over and over and over. Like Stan on the broadcast, shout out to Stan. This got to be hard for him because he was back with the Eric Bledsoe and the Steven Adams thing. He's like, if y'all still gave me this, I might still have a job. But like all game long, he was talking about the Pelicans' death because every time you sit down a Zion, every time you sit down a Brennan, somebody else is coming back in. And oh, by the way, Trey Murphy is coming off the bench with 14 points. Like, there's always some wave of something coming at you. And we're not even talking about JV, who again puts up a double-double. And so during this lineup, you see like the light bulb, and everyone talked about, you saw the TNT broadcast talking about it. Like you see the potential for this team when everybody is available, just because it can be a pick your poison night. So let's talk about Zion slow start. So obviously Sacramento was like, look, we ain't got the facilities to guard Zion one-on-one. So we are going to guard Zion team on Zion. And so they sold out to stop Zion tonight. And to his credit, yes, he had a couple turnovers where he tried to force it in the beginning of the game. But as the game went on, he stopped. He stopped forcing it. He let the game come to him. And, they were ragging him on the broadcast about him having a slow game. But somebody asked me last game when the Pels won versus Spurs and Brandon Ingram had 12 points or whatever it is, are you worried of Brandon Ingram? I think it's going to be a night-by-night game. Like, if you can walk away and your best player had 10 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, and you won by 10 points and you won handily because your other best player had 30 and your other defensive player had 23 and your other player off the bench had 15, nobody's arguing that. The last win the Pelicans had, they had 7 guys in double figures. Tonight, they had 6 guys, and Jose had 9 points. So, if every night it's going to be a pick your poison type thing, you got to guard something, we're going to find the weakness on your team, I don't think that's a necessarily bad thing, because you go into tonight's game talking about, well, you're starting to see Zion get back to Zion, right? Like he's put back-to-back, his first back-to-back of the season, got 20 points in that game, or 20 plus points, high efficiency starting to come back, his touch at the free throw line starting to come back, his assists are starting to come up, he's starting to shoot the wide open 3 a little bit. So prior to this game, you're talking about, okay, Zion's almost there, and then you have a game where I guess it's a down game for his standards, but the team wins handily. And so talk about how this progression of Zion back into basketball shape while also trying to figure out what are the right matchups for him to be on the court with, and what's the right spacing and things like that, and what that can propel the Pelicans to do moving forward.
First thing, let me get back to Herb Jones, because I don't think Herb Jones gets enough credit and everything. We're gonna talk about Zion. Her, I think that Herb Jones might be a basketball like genius. Like, first of all, when Herb got drafted, he was an older guy, so like you thought maybe his ceiling was you're gonna hit his ceiling kind of early, and it like every year he comes back better, and he comes back more confident, and now he's hitting a three at a decent clip. But the thing that makes Herb Jones like a joy to watch is his basketball IQ. This guy in the middle of the floor, whether it's in transition or whether it's a play being ran, like him being the dribble handoff guy, or it's him in a scramble play where he's like getting in the middle of the floor and they passing him the ball and he's hitting JV underneath the rim for a dunk, or he's hitting Brandon Ingram or Trey Murphy in the corner for a clutch three in the fourth quarter of a in-season tournament game. This guy just has the basketball IQ of some of the greats, and it is just it's amazing to watch it kind of develop, because he's always been a smart guy, but man, this guy is he just gets it. He gets basketball, like he gets it, and that seems like such a simple thing to say, but like he just gets basketball, and it's beautiful to watch him play, because he just knows where everybody is, and he knows what plays need to be run, and he knows how to get to spots. And I always talk about like how defenders in the NBA are you could put them in different classes, right? You could say will defenders, who guys like Dylan Brooks and Patrick Beverly, who are crowding you all the time and in your face and poking the bear to kind of make you upset. And then you got guys like Drew Holiday and Herb and Marcus Smart, who are more tactician defenders. And I think, and they play basketball with their mind, and they use their body and their hands in ways to kind of get you off, as opposed to being all in your face and stuff. And Herb's version of defense is it's incredible to watch. And when you see him getting steals and coming down and dunking the ball and growling and snarling at people, like, this is a guy who is growing into himself as a player and as a member of this team. And he is just one of the. They talked about the draft on TNT. Herb Jones is we called it a transformational pick, and you cannot express how lucky the Pelicans are to have found this guy. This guy's a second round pick. You don't find people trade 4 and 5 second rounds for one player, and you found a 10-year starter as in the second round. Just an amazing development. And as he develops, this team is going to get even better. But to Zion, yes, Zion has to play himself in shape. He has to play himself into some of the things. Now, that's not to give him a pass, because he's been great some of these, some of these games this season. I think the Kings just had a really good defensive plan where he just was not going to see one-on-one or one-on-two, to be honest with you, which is basically one-on-one. He was not. I mean, they were turning their backs to Najee and to Jose and to even Trey. Like, Trey got some couple wide open shots because everybody was turning their back to Zion, to guard Zion. And to Zion's credit, he found other ways. He had 6 defensive rebounders for all everybody. He doesn't rebound. There's your defensive rebounds. He was assisting. He was being a good, decoy out there, right? Like, getting everybody to turn their heads to him, and then hitting people with good passes, and finding people. So, listen, when you have right at 3 steals, and one of them he just took that joint from one of the guys. I forgot what it was. He just took the ball from him and just went on fast break. It was ridiculous. But this is what happened when you have the depth the Pelicans have. Like, you don't go into games needing Zion to go for 35. We've watched, like, we talk about the Mavs and like the Bucks, right? Who, like, if Kyrie and Luka don't go crazy, you probably will lose that game, right? We saw the Mavs go to 30-0 run with Luka and no Kyrie and still lose the game because they were so far back. Like, it's tough when your best players, when those best players aren't going nuclear. We even seeing it go with the world champions, right? Without Jamal Murray coming back, if Jokic and Murray aren't going crazy, it's tough for them to win. But when you have guys like Brandon Ingram stepping in and being the best version of himself, and Herb Jones giving you 23, and Trey Murphy hitting clutch threes, and Jose carried. It seemed like throughout the game, every person had a little time, right? Even Dyson came in, had a steal, had a block. He came in and contributed, and Zion just had a good finger on the pulse of the game, understanding what was working and what wasn't. It wasn't a high scoring game for him, but he found ways to contribute in other different ways. And his team, the guys, this, with this deep roster, what good is a deep roster if it can't save you in games like this? And it came through. So I'm not worried at all about Zion. Zion, like you said, coming into this game, the story was, man, Zion is starting to look like Zion, which is scary. So one game isn't going to throw me off of feeling that way and feeling that Zion was working. I just think it's credit to Mike Brown and the Kings for coming up with a good game plan on Zion. And I think it's also good that Zion was able to notice it and notice it early, that you're not going to be able to go through 3-4 guys every single time and find his way. No harm, no foul.
Right. I mean, you talk about Zion, you talk about BI kind of lifting the mantle and taking over the game and closing out the game. But we have to talk about the return of Trey Murphy. Look, he had 16 points tonight. There were some shots he probably passed up that he probably shouldn't have passed up. Like, he hesitated on a couple. There are probably some shots that he took that he probably shouldn't have took as well. But the thing with Trey is the gravity that he brings. Like, there was a play where it was Brandon Ingram's show running the point and Zion's on the bench, where they brought the house at JV. They brought the house at BI. And they left Trey Murphy open on the other side of the court, right? When that guy is on the court, it just makes everything easier for everybody, even if he's not hitting shots, right? Just his mere presence, right? We talk about when CJ came back, just his presence of having a calm veteran to get you a bucket. CJ did it tonight. When the Kings tried to punch back in the second half, CJ went out there and got his buckets, got his two to stop the run and get a bucket on the board. But when you have Trey out there, it just changes the game. And the thing we talk about all the time with Trey is not just his shooting ability, but his activity, right? Like, Trey was jumping all over the place, trying to get defensive rebounds, trying to tip the ball back. The guy is 6'10" that can jump out the gym. So it's not just his scoring. It's not just his floor spacing. It's the energy that he brings as well. And so when you have Trey on the court together, I think it just changes the dynamic of the team. Everything just becomes easier for everybody else. And so what are your thoughts on Trey as he gets back in the rhythm? Like, it's crazy to think about. Like, they've taken down some good teams, and nobody's really had a chance to mesh with nobody because everybody's been taking their turn sitting down and coming back and injury and this and that. And so what are your thoughts of Trey's 2 games so far?
I think Trey has looked good, man. Like, again, the shots, he can shoot in his sleep without anybody doing anything for it. Like, that's something that's going to come. But I think what I like about Trey is he's the length that obviously that he brings on the floor. I saw him tip 2 passes back to back, just like flailing his arms in the air, right? And being tall. And I think that when you see Trey Murphy on television, it still doesn't do as justice of how tall and how like long his arms and things are. And so you see him out there with his activity, right? Jumping in the fray, tipping balls out, deflecting balls, things like that. Those are the things that bring. And then when the game is tight, like, you still feel good about almost like every Trey shot. Like, it may be a bad shot for a lot of people, but you feel good about it because it looks good. It looks like a guy who practices this shot and knows this shot. It can hit.
He took an almost half-court shot, like, in the beginning of the second quarter, and even Stan Van Gundy was like, "That's a good shot for him," even though he missed.
Yeah, like you just confident in it, and you saw. Like, you leave him on the floor and he hits a big 3 in the fourth quarter. And that is what Trey Murphy is. I called him Weapon X on Twitter. Like, when you got all of these guys, Brandon Ingram and Zion and JV and CJ doing all of this, and then Trey Murphy comes in and he looked like he's like a statue. Like, he looks like a basketball statue. And when he shoots, I told you off the pod, he looks like the shooting machine from half court, because it's like a machine, and it just looks like it's water every time. And that constant threat of, okay, not only can this guy shoot, but I have to be able to have a guy that is at least tall enough to contest this 6'9", 6'10" guy And then also he can't be too small because now Trey Murphy is too dribbling and putting it and dunking on people, and also too dribbling to the side, taking folk off the dribble for pull-up twos and sidestep threes. And as he gets his legs underneath him, it's his second game. As he gets his leg underneath him, we talk about the only way to get good at basketball is to play regular season basketball against people who are not trying to be kid gloves with you. You see he's going to be a serious weapon for this team. And so I think he's going to be A-okay. He looks all right coming off, jumping off that knee and dunking on people and rebounding. So I think he's going to be fine. It's just about getting his rhythm, getting his wind underneath him. And I think Trey Murphy is going to be huge for this team.
Right. So the Pelicans are 12-10 now. The last 10 games, you've really seen them, turn it up a notch. And obviously health is a big part of that. You get Jose back, you get CJ back, you get Trey back. That's a big part of it. But also it's just their activity, right? In their last 10 games, they're 6th in assists, 3rd in steals, 10th in pace, 10th in fast break points, 3rd in loose balls. Like they're winning all the hustle, the nitty gritty stats. And that's what this team needs to be because that's what they're built of. Obviously you have your star power, but winning those dirty minutes and winning those dirty statistics is where this team thrives, and they're getting back to that mentality. That being said, now you wait the winner of Phoenix versus LA. And when I look at that game, I'm like, this is bad blood either way. And I know Phoenix roster has turned over, but Devin Booker is still on that team. And I don't think Devin Booker goes too well versus the Pelicans in terms of I think Najee will have something to say to a Devin Booker. So what's your outlook on the potential opponent, which we'll find out tomorrow night?
I think the Pels match up well with Phoenix for sure. Okay. Simply because they don't have the size to deal with JV and Zion. I think even like the Kings have a little bit more size than the Suns. Obviously, Durant and Booker are incredible. But again, I think you have guys who can make it hard on Durant and Booker. We talk about Dyson, you talk about Herb, Najee, guys like that, even Brandon Ingram. So I think so. The Lakers, again, LeBron, their team is not that great. It is not that great. But it's something about LeBron and AD. They always find a way to hang around. I do think that in order to get to where you want to, like you're going to have to go through one of these teams, probably both of them at the end, right? Like the Lakers are going to be there. LeBron is going to do LeBron stuff, and the Lakers are going to be there. And then Phoenix with Kevin Durant and Booker and maybe Bill when he gets back. Like you're going to have to go through one of them if you want to do anything this season. And so I think it'll be a good matchup for either one. This is the first time I think that we've had like a top 10 of all time scorers between Durant and LeBron. So I can't wait to see that matchup. They haven't played each other a lot since they've kind of switched teams and everything. Somebody's always missing. So it's gonna be good to see them on the floor. But I think I told you before the podcast, before the game started, I think the Pelicans are, if not the second, they were the second best team before the knockout round started. And then the Celtics lost to the Pacers. So, like, I think the Pelicans, if they're not the best team, they're like one or two with the, as a best team in this tournament left. So it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see again. I can't wait for the Black Blood. I kind of wish it was either a real home game and not in Vegas, so you could kind of see the crowds get into it. It'll be interesting to see, like, if it's a Lakers game, the crowd's gonna be all Lakers. But if it's the Suns, it'll be interesting to see what that arena's like in Vegas. But the Pels are headed to Vegas. They defeat the Kings again for the first time this season. But what you got left for the people as we prepare to see who the Pels' next opponent will be?
As always, you never know what people are going through. So to give someone a smile today, the Pels are going to Vegas. And I tweeted this out a couple of days back when they beat the Nuggets. Like, this is the Pels are made, like, this tournament is made for teams like the Pels. Young, with something to prove, superstar talent, depth. This is what the tournament is made for, right? And for the NBA to have, like, smaller markets with these stars, we talk about the Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton in New Orleans with with Zion and Brandon Ingram, to have these guys kind of move on and now are like going to be the face of the inaugural in-season tournament. I think it's good for the NBA. And I think if the Pelicans can pull this next one off and get to the championship on Saturday, I think this could really launch the Pelicans into a good groove and to take this momentum and go back to the regular season with it. So we'll see. Gonna be good. They play tomorrow. I think they the late game again at 9:00. Hashtag abolish West Coast tip-offs altogether. It's awful. It's terrible. So as always, follow myself on Twitter and X at Garrick_Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael_Rattler. Follow the page at No Basketball No E. That's on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your social medias. Most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans Basketball, and we'll see you guys next time.